Hey guys, Deathslayer Magic here, and it's time for a very overdue video. Remember how I said I'd thoroughly investigate why they reprinted, turns out, 4 cards in Rivals of Ixalan that are verbatim identical copies of the Ixalan ones? Well, I looked into it, and we actually got an answer from Wizards. I know, certainly not directly to me, because that would never happen. What's the term when somebody does that on a massive scale? I think it's shunned. Isn't that what, like, the Amish do or something? I have been shunned. I am he which they do not speak of or to. They probably speak about me all the time, but not to me. Oh, I'm not even joking. I heard from a very reliable source, multiple actually, that they have a blacklist of people that, one, you don't send promos to, which that's literally what it is, but also never feature this person, this group, this company, whatever, this vendor, this person. Never feature them on Daily MTG. Don't reference them on social media. Don't reply to them. Don't do anything with their content. Just pretend they don't exist. Just don't work with them. Don't patronize them at all. I mean, like in the traditional definition, like patronage. Speaking of that, worst segue ever, check out my Patreon. Link in the description. Oh, I had to get that plug in. So anyway, Mark Rosewater himself, who is rarely afraid to just state things that are going on at the company, I've noticed a pattern, especially when he doesn't agree with them. Oh, either that or when it was his idea and he feels the need to defend it. When it's like card quality thing, he ain't going to comment on it. But if it's like, oh, this is questionable and he was the one behind it, boom, he's going to go all Q&A on you. Well, I don't really know where his involvement starts and ends on this one, but what we do know is that when questioned, he said, we realized that one of the problems with small sets was the following. Sets need basic effects. That's true. Got to get your bread and butter. Got to get your mechanics out there. The large set would make the best version of the effect, and then the small set would make the second best version. Wow, has that never been true ever? The best vehicles, the best energy cards were in Aether Revolt, the best dinosaurs, the best every tribal everywhere. The merfolk were better in Rivals. I don't think this has ever been true. Anyway, he goes on to say, small sets shouldn't feel pressured to make a different card if the first set had what they needed. Here's a thought, then don't make it 184 cards or whatever. Anyway, we limited the reprints from the large set to a small number of cards and to common only. And that is true. If you're not familiar, the 4 cards were actually Colossal Dreadmaw, Legion Conquistador, Raptor Companion, and Sailor of Means. So let's take Raptor Companion for an example, because this is the only one that honestly makes a whole lot of sense to me, but I'd have to do some research that, I don't know, I'll just take his word for it. But let's say you needed a 3-1 for 2. That's a dinosaur. That's what you needed. You needed a cheap, aggressive dinosaur in white. Okay, well now that spot's filled. Well, what do you put in, as a white dinosaur tribal common in Rivals now? You've already got a 3-1. Do you just throw in a 1-1 for 1 that does nothing? Do you throw in a 2-2 for 2 that does nothing? I mean, you wouldn't throw in a 3-2 for 2 because that's too powerful. Can't really give him First Strike or Lifelink because that's just too powerful in the common slot for 2. Do you make a 3-2 that comes in tapped? I think that's a little bit too dynamic with the playtesting and everything. So they decided we just don't need another 2-cost dinosaur with 3 attack. We just don't need that. And why just put in jank filler? So instead, since a 3-1 for 2 is a very good card, very powerful at the pre-release, very important in sealed, draft, anything, they just simply threw it in. And let me say, one of the major theories for why this happened was for draft purposes. And people are looking at especially Raptor Companion, where people would definitely draft that, and said, well, it's such a good, important, crucial, staple, common draft card that, maybe they just threw it in just purely for draft purposes. That makes sense, but Legion Conquistador, a 2-2 that fetches itself, what the hell are the odds that you're going to have that in sealed? I mean, draft, maybe if you went out of your way to do it, but then you're just like flooding with 2-2s, which I guess is a kind of valid strategy. It's a little weak for draft, but whatever. Then you look at Colossal Dreadmaw. It's a 6-cost 6-6 with trample. Yeah, I mean, it's a game ender. It prevents the games from going too long. If you manage to put this in your deck and then you hit it, you get to 6 and you pretty much use this to hopefully end the game. And then Sailor of Means, I mean, this is huge. He's ramp because he creates a single-use treasure, so he's minimal ramp. But then also, he's a 3-cost 1-4. And this 1/4 stops everything. I mean, people have played this in sealed and they've played it in constructed. You throw that down turn 3 and they're done swinging for a while. So I would say, yeah, with the exception of Legion Conquistador, and that one's debatable, for sealed and draft reasons, they threw these exact ones back in because they already did something very specific. And for all of these, it's very specific. I mean, even Conquistador, very, very, very particular effect. So I understand with and partially agree with what they did from like a logical perspective or from the standpoint that they're coming from. But on the flip side, why would they want the public image of seeming lazy or incompetent? Because, I mean, the other theory, which was my theory until I really looked into it much, was that they had an overpowered card and they had an infinite combo that got through playtesting. So they had an emergency pull on the sheet of a certain card. What are the odds that would happen in the common slot? So, like, that was a bit suspicious. I think Felidar was an uncommon, though, so, yeah. It's possible, but any kind of, like, flicker effect or anything important is usually not in the common slot. Those are just, like, the bread and butter, tribal, basic mechanics, just block cards. It's your basic counter spells. It's nothing real particularly special, usually. I mean, Treasure Cruise, I feel like there just wasn't room in the uncommon, so they just threw it down to common. But, you know, besides a couple exceptions, it's like, whatever. So at this point, it would have to have been, like, 4 emergency replacements or something. Or the common versus uncommon ratio would have to be off where they, like, pulled a rare and made it a common or something, which would mess with sheet cutting, and I just don't think they could do that from, like, a physical printing standpoint. So I think we can call it, you know, solved. It's just, what do you guys think? Just for posterity or for image or whatever, should they have just done a vanilla blah, just a 2/2 for 2 tribal that does nothing in its place? You know, people would have just overlooked it and it's like, whatever, maybe you'll pull it at a draft if you need something a bit lower curve. But other than that, you know, should they have thrown in just a blah, vanilla, whatever, just dummy jank creature? Like on tribal, like dinosaur or whatever, pirate, but just a do-nothing card? Or would you prefer these 4 cards specifically to be reprinted? I'd say just for like commercial, like marketing PR and all that and just image, I would have made up some jank cards. So from a business decision standpoint, they obviously should have done that. But for a functionality and taking really good cards and putting them back into the next draft or whatever, even though, you know, you do get 2 Ixalan packs in your pre-release, and I believe with draft it's, I'm not even sure. Is it 2 Ixalan, 1 Rivals, or is it 2 Rivals, 1 Ixalan? I'm not sure. Either way, it's a mix, so it's not like you couldn't pull those cards. It's just now you have more chances at pulling the cards. I guess from a play standpoint, okay, throw them in, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a balancing thing for standard too. It would either have to be just useless, pointless, waste of time jank, which would just lower the power of draft, or they'd have to make something overpowered or a little bit broken or a little bit unique, and that would throw off everything that they designed, you know, somewhat carefully. So yeah, I get the importance behind it. I get why they did it, and honestly, hopefully they don't do it again, and they probably won't, because they kind of can't, technically, because there's no longer small sets. It's 1 block equals 1 set. They're all going to be about, 254, 256, something like that cards, and that's it. Now, they did say that mechanics might be shared between sets, but implemented in, I think they said, like, a different way or something, so will they really be separate? I don't know. And honestly, if they had a 189 or 184 or whatever card set done, and now it has to be, like, 254... are they just going to reprint the balls off of it or just like jank it out with just a bunch of useless filler crap? I mean, at any given time, you can take all 10 of the enter the battlefield tapped lands and throw them in. I mean, just remember that. You can get 10 more commons that way. As for uncommons, rares, and mythics, you'd have to add quite a few, actually. I think it's like 4 mythic, 8 rare, 10, 12 rare, something like that, for like to be the distance between a small set and a big set. So, I mean, what I'm saying is hopefully Dominaria and the one after it, which is going to be like Return to Ravnica, it looks like, hopefully those weren't supposed to go together and they're just kind of BSing it and putting in filler. Because, like, remember, these are usually done by the time they make weird decisions. Like, some of the cards from BFZ were never meant to work with Eldritch Moon. And that's why we had, like, disastrously overpowered combos and they had to ban Reflector Mage. That card was never supposed to be legal. That level of color fixing in dual lands was never supposed to be legal concurrently. But they made that decision without really consulting or just regardless to the decisions made by design and playtesting. So it is possible that they designed a 184 card set or whatever it should be and then told them make it bigger because we just made this decision in a completely different division. And that would be pretty disastrous, although they have enough time to kind of tweak it and retest it, I guess. Either way, at least we've got the mystery solved by Mark Rosewater himself, so he gets the gold star of the day in class for being transparent and actually communicating with the community. So, go Mark. Now, that doesn't mean I want him to keep designing mechanics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.